What's up, guys? This is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week, I interviewed one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the world, Zach Even-Esh. We talk about training, coaching, life philosophy, and how he got to the position that he's in today. Before we get started, if you're interested in some free programs, information, blog posts, videos, etc., go to brutestrengthtraining.com and sign up for our newsletter, and we'll keep you updated. Enjoy the show. All right, what's up, guys? I'm here with Zach Even-Esh. Zach, how are you today, man?
Cool. I'm excited to be here, Mike. Thanks, my man.
Absolutely. Thank you for making some time out of your busy schedule, brother.
Craziness.
Can we start out by you just giving a little bit of your background as a strength and conditioning coach, and how did you learn what you know today?
Yes. I mean, you could sit there for an hour and I could go through the whole thing. I'm going to try to go like 2 minutes. So I started training in 1989. I was like the end of 8th grade. Remember, it was like a couple weeks before 8th grade was over. And my older brother, 2 years older than me, was into just working out in general. Like, he would run our Doberman 3 times a day. He would always do like weird things. I remember he'd be like, he goes, Zach, if I want to open up the refrigerator and eat something, I have to do 10 push-ups. Like, he'd come up with like all these things, and then he'd like tell me that I have to do what he's doing. And I was extremely weak. I still remember in 7th grade during like the fitness test, I was able to do 2 push-ups when the minimum was supposed to be 5. And I remember like the kids in my group were like, they're like, weak, so weak. I was like, oh, it was embarrassing. So I got into it by really seeing my brother training. He would have those old bodybuilding magazines floating around. I'm 40, so when I started working out, I was 13. But when I started kind of coming across the training stuff was probably when I was in 6th grade, seeing the old magazines my brother had. And whatever happened when I began training the end of 8th grade, like, I just became obsessed. And I started spending all my money on books, bodybuilding magazines. And back then, there was actually a lot of unique bodybuilding books that were out. And I would mow lawns on the weekend, had a paper route, things like that to make money. And as soon as I had money, I would buy books. Or my parents would basically go to the mall and leave me at the bookstore and come back like 4 hours later, and I would read every book, every bodybuilding book. So I started lifting weights and kind of following the Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding methods. And when I got to high school, I started wrestling, but was way behind the 8 ball. I wasn't tough. I wasn't physical. You know, my muscles were kind of built off of a lot of like that pump up training, so I wasn't really strong. And that, fast forward through high school, that's the only way I knew how to lift. We're talking, I graduated in 1993, and that led to a lot of hard work, but a lot of poor results. Think of like somebody training like a bodybuilder, but they say, I'm going to go compete in CrossFit. It just doesn't work, So that was kind of like the way things were working for me with wrestling. And once I got out of high school, got into college, I said, I'm going to just go full force into bodybuilding. That was what I was passionate about at the time. I was really emotionally just drained from the disappointments I produced for myself of such hard training, but not training for performance. Those ideas and methods just weren't available to people in the early 90s unless, you really knew. And I'm going to tell you guys a quick story that could have changed my entire life. And it just went, I guess, south, so to speak. So I wasn't born in this country. I was born in Israel, and we moved to America when I was 11 months old. And we'd go back every couple years and stay with my grandparents. And the summer before high school, when I was training maybe like 2 months, we go to Israel, And I remember like complaining to my grandfather, like, if I don't find a gym, like I will lose all this muscle. It's like 110 or 115
Right.
pounds. I'm like, I'm gonna lose it all. And I was doing like push-ups on the front porch, and then there was a playground nearby, and me and my friends would run there with my brother. We would do pull-ups. And then my grandfather says, well, there's this guy in town. His name is Andre. And, they nicknamed him Andre the Giant. And he's not Andre the Giant, the wrestler. This guy was a Romanian weightlifter who had left Romania. That's where my father's from. During the time of communism. He left. They went to Israel. And the story is going to come full circle, but basically we go to my in this small town in Israel, like everybody knows everybody, at least my grandfather, he knew everyone. So we're bothering him for like 3 or 4 days to find where does Andre live, because the gym is in the downstairs of his house. So after like 3 or 4 days, my dad, he rented a car. My grandfather never owned a car. He always rode his bike everywhere. We drive there. And we knock on the door in like the afternoon, which is like in Israel, it's like the siesta. People and businesses and everything shuts down from like 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. People sleep. We knock on the door and this fucking tank answers the door. And I remember I was like, holy shit. He answers the door in like those short shorts, no shirt. And I still remember, like, he was built like, he reminded me of like he had that solid build of, if you've ever seen that Polish weightlifting video on YouTube. You ever see that?
I'm not sure.
Oh, it's an old black and white video, I believe, from the 70s. But he looked like a hybrid gymnast / wrestler. Ripped up, just built like a tank. Fucking big legs, small weights.
A refrigerator.
Like a refrigerator, man. Opens the door. My grandpa's like, these are my grandkids. They want to lift weights. He goes, fine. You come here tonight, whatever, 6 o'clock. My grandfather pays him whatever the money was that night. And his downstairs of his house, it's like there's like weights in the bedrooms. It's like bedrooms without furniture. It's like the Universal is in one room. Mm-hmm. The other room has like, barbells, fixed barbells. And there was like kind of typical gym equipment. Then off to the corner was Andre and his squat rack. He had a pair of upright stands, and then the ceiling was cut, was removed so he could go overhead with the weight. And then the floor he like cut the floor, and like rubber flooring was like stuffed into it so he could drop the weights. And I remember being in the gym. I'm 13, and my brother's like, hey, Zach, what are you going to lift today? So I'm like thinking I'm a big shot. I know how to train. I've read Arnold's encyclopedia. I know everything. I'm like, I'm going to do 5 sets of 10 of bent over row, and then I'm going to do this. So I'm like trying to like announce like my expertise.
Right.
Dude, I'm doing like bent over rows with maybe 40 pounds. The fixed barbell. I remember my back is like hunched over, round back. And Andre is off to the side doing shit like power cleans, split jerks. I've never seen this. This is 1989. He's squat jumping with the bar on his back. Like, he was doing split jerks, but instead of like holding at the top, he would bang out like 5 rapid reps, like bang, bang, bang. And I remember saying in my mind, like, look at this dumbass. He's going to hurt himself. Yeah. Like, totally, don't know what's going on in 1989. He sees me doing bent over row. He like shouts at me, like in this like, horrific English. He's like, stop. Then he like flips out on me screaming, like partially Romanian, partial Hebrew. He like demonstrates the bent over row. Flat back, demonstrates like rowing to your neck instead of rowing to like your stomach. He like shouts at me, and I like leave his house. I'm like crying. I go across the street because we're in like a neighborhood. I'm across the street on the other side of the street on somebody's lawn, and then like 2 minutes later, there's like 10 guys. They're like, it's okay, like with their broken English. They're like, come back inside. He won't make you cry.
No shit.
It's like the first foray into like learning to train. And, I would go back to his gym pretty much every day but he never showed me or anybody else weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting. He never showed it to anybody. And I always say, shit, like if he would have said, you know what, you don't know what the fuck you're doing, kid. You're going to show up here every day and I'm going to train you. He would have taught me how to clean, squat, do all those things. Mm-hmm. But instead, I was like reading shit that said, squeeze your muscle, peak contraction, drop sets, like all this pump up stuff that, yes, made you look good, but it was, machines and leg extensions and cable crossover. So what happened was training like that, basically, I had that kind of pump up body. I looked strong, but I really wasn't strong. So when I started getting into or out of bodybuilding, I started coming across or being more inspired just by the guys from the golden era, the 70s, the 60s. And I was like, look at these guys. They're deadlifting 4 plates, 5 plates. They're doing clean and press. They're doing heavy barbell row. Like everything was heavy. And I started training that way in my early 20s. And I remember just not only getting strong, but feeling tough. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, damn, I'm friggin' feeling this shit now. So fast forward many years, I graduate college. I become a phys ed teacher. I've loved teaching. I'm coaching wrestling at the middle school level. And I've got back then it's like there's no really, you never heard of strength coach. You only heard of personal trainer. The internet was new. So I didn't really start getting into this until I was a 5th-year teacher and I tore my ACL during jiu-jitsu training. And, I had a knee surgery already before that. I had I was like just shy of having a fully torn rotator cuff. Wrestling, I remember even hearing like the tearing of my shoulder, not knowing, I remember it took me like 6 months just to do a push-up because I didn't know any kind of rehab. I didn't know, I should do face pulls. Maybe I could do pulling motions, but I can't push, or half. I didn't know any of that. So when I tore my ACL, a couple months later, I get the surgery, and I just remember, the turning point was going. I remember, being wheeled down on the hospital bed, and I'm like, I'm fucking gonna wage war on training athletes and figure this shit out. As soon as I'm out of this surgery, I'm figuring shit out. And as a wrestler, I knew that the best wrestlers in the world were the Russians. So in my mind, I'm thinking I've got to study what the Russian wrestlers did. And the internet was, pretty new. This is like, had my surgery, I think, in 2003, maybe. And so that was like June 2003. And I started studying training. And back then, there weren't a lot of websites. So, lucky for me, the initial websites I did come across were the best. It was Elite FTS. Joe DeFranco used to do a Ask Joe, and I used to email Joe questions all the time.
No shit.
Yeah, Joe probably, I don't even know, I haven't been to his website. I don't really go to too many websites, but back then, like I would print out, like I'd go on Westside Barbell, and I printed out every single article they had written. I had a bunch of 3-ring binders, and I studied it. I would ask Joe questions all the time. How do you make somebody fast without actually running? I became good friends with Dave Tate, Jim Wendler, and I started just training athletes out of my parents' garage and backyard. And then the next year, or maybe 2 years later, my fiance and I bought a house, but the house was such a fucking shithole that we couldn't live in it for a year. But what we did was the first thing we fixed was the 2-car garage. And I was training athletes from the garage, the backyard, and the elementary school down the street for a year. Basically, as soon as a parent paid me, that money went right to our my wife's aunt, my wife's uncles who were working the house, or to the people that were the whole house was gutted. And I would be in there training at all. Like in the summertime, if a dad was like, I'm going to bring Mike on Sunday at 2 p.m. after church. Okay. Or we need to train that, like, and what's crazy is people started finding out about it in the wrestling community and were driving an hour each way to train with me. And what I was doing was simply, taking methods from like the world's strongest man, utilizing calisthenics, the research I was doing of West Side Barbell. And as a teacher, I would call Louie every week on my prep period, and we'd talk on the phone for like 30 to 40 minutes. And he would talk to me about training Kevin Randleman. He would talk to me about training wrestlers. And instead of, doing 5 sets of 5, he talked to me about, dumbbell benching for 2 minutes nonstop, 4 minutes nonstop, or, dragging a sled for 6 minutes to, recreate 6 minutes of just, movement that would happen during a wrestling match. And he got me to think on a whole nother level. And my plan was never to open up a gym. Right now, I've got 2 locations with a third one opening in the fall. And my plan was I'm going to continue being a teacher. I love being a teacher. I was a phys ed teacher. And then I'll just train some athletes. And as the years kind of went by through that school district I worked in, my whole thing was like, how can I help these kids? How can I change them? And what was weird was even working in that school district, the coaches didn't want my help. Even the coaches, the football team had a 36 football game losing streak. So they lost games for 3.5 years. And I was training like 3 of their football players who broke all their records. And you'd have to get like your plaque, like a wooden plaque on their balls called the perch on the weight room wall. They're still up there. It was like you had to squat over 400, bench over 300. So it was maybe like bench 315, squat 405, clean 225. The kids I was training broke all the school records. And I was like, let me train the team. I got 2 of your guys, 3 of your guys. They're the strongest guys on your team. Let me train this whole team and you'll destroy. You will kill people. And they're like, nah, we're good. And I remember saying to myself, how the fuck could you say you're good? Like, how could you say you don't need my help when your team keeps losing? And it just got me so mad that I decided that if these people don't care, then I can't be around people that don't care, and I need to go and do my own thing. Mm-hmm. And, the training grew, and while I was training athletes, I would basically write about it all the time. So I was probably putting out 1 article a week for Elite FTS for I don't know how long. I mean, a long time. I remember Dave Tate telling me I had written the most articles except for Jim and Dave. So I had yeah. And basically, when I was teaching, every time I had a prep, I'd be writing. I'd go to the playground and I'd take another teacher with me. I'd say, take pictures of me while I'm doing these pull-ups and this and that. And like just my brain was just going. My energy level still, I'm just like, I'm fucking nuts. Like yesterday I gave not really a pep talk, almost like a smack talk to a wrestling team. And then the father sees me. He goes, my son just told me that you're crazy. I go, I don't know any other way to make it happen, brother, because normal doesn't cut it. So my training, goes back to 1989, and it's this constant evolution. My first underground strength gym location in the warehouse setting has been there for a little over 9 years. My second location, 3.5 years. And, I struggle. I go through the same struggles like all other coaches, but I've decided to just focus on athletes. I don't train adults. Here and there, I might let a dad sneak in on a workout, but it's extremely, extremely rare. And I always tell the kids, I go ahead and try to be lazy. Like, I'll burn this fucking gym down before you fuck up this gym with laziness. I don't even know if I'm sorry for cursing. I try to contain it, but
you're fine on here, man.
Okay, so I just tell them straight up, I am basically you cannot, my passion is so much into the helping of these kids, but I tell them, I go, you cannot, if you don't want to be here, you can't hold us back. The people that hate on us, the people that, I want to help people so much that I sometimes come across as just too much. I'm just too much of everything for most people because I'm just fired up for greatness. I don't want mediocrity. I don't want average. I don't like that shit. So what I do really is when I'm training athletes is the training is this blend of what they need on the physical and even more so what they need on the mental, because I have learned time and time again that you could be just, perfectly trained on these impressive scientific protocols, but if you don't have, some badassery inside your brain, if you don't have the toughness, if you haven't been trained emotionally and psychologically, to want to just destroy other people, then all these impressive interviews that come from people with all this science stuff, young kids are so far from that. It's like we're with what's on the internet compared to what these young kids need is just, listen, we've got kids that can't do a bodyweight squat without their back hunching over past the halfway squat. We've got varsity football players that can't do 10 good push-ups, 5 good push-ups, 1 full range pull-up without, squirming all over the place. And these are kids that are coming from, places where parents are like, yeah, he's lifting in the weight room and he's training at school. And I get mad because I know that these kids don't get a second chance. Until the flux capacitor comes, to reality, these kids can't go back to the future and fix, their bad time in sports. So my whole thing is like trying to take these training methods and get it to the younger generation, which only used to be, I'm only going to train you in high school. Then I was like, all right, I'll train 8th graders. And then it became 7th. Then it became 6th graders. And now I've even got a couple of 4th graders. Well, now they're going into 5th grade. They just, finished school. But the reason why I started training kids younger is because they're showing up weaker and weaker, not just physically, but mentally. And by mentally, I mean, as soon as like the slightest challenge arises, oh, I'm busy. Oh, like I have to lift at school. There's so many kids that quit. And it's like, fuck, that's a bad habit that this country can't afford to have. Like, forget sports, forget strength and conditioning. We just need some more tough people walking the earth. That's kind of what's running through my mind. I don't know if that's not really the normal way to think or whatever, but that's just, I think when I'm training athletes, I'm thinking much more than just points on the board, championships that they've won. I'm thinking much deeper than that. I'm thinking of how am I training them for life? How can these methods and workouts stay with them for a lifetime? Because when I am growing my business in the various capacities or going through tough time in general, I go back to lessons from the gym, from training.
Right.
I go back to lessons from wrestling. And to me, that means I had some great coaches in my life because they fucking pushed me way past the comfort zone. And there's nothing good happening in anybody's comfort zone. That's for sure.
Exactly. I mean, my upbringing was almost identical to what you're describing. Like I had the most comfortable upbringing for sure. And all of the mental toughness that I have comes out of playing sports and lifting weights. That is it. I could have chose to stay at my house playing Nintendo all day, but like you're saying, these solid coaches and mentors are what I owe to a lot of my kind of mental fortitude. So I think you kept it just under 2 minutes there, like you were trying to.
Fucking 2 minutes went to 30 minutes or some shit. I suck at answering questions. It like takes me 20 minutes.
Bro, I fucking love it.
Question.
That was great. I got a couple questions off of that. So
let's do it.
One thing that I have to assume you attribute to a lot of your success is that you just reached out to some of the best coaches in the world, right? And you became friends with them, and you wrote articles for them. Like what is your process? What was your process for reaching out to these people?
Yeah. I feel like back then you weren't over inundated. Like, Mike, I hate to say it, like I never heard of you. I heard of Brute. I didn't know who you were. There's so much. There's what's that?
I said most people don't know me. That's okay.
Well, the whole thing is like, maybe a month ago, I came across Ronnie Teasdale on Instagram, and I'm like, fuck. how do I not know this guy? I'd love to learn from this guy. And what it just reminded me was there's just way too much information, and it's like I get mad at myself for missing out on great information. Like there's so much information. So back then when I started connecting with like Joe DeFranco and all these guys, there was no Facebook. I don't even think there was MySpace back then. There was less lines of communication, which made it easier. So with Joe, I always remember that I emailed Joe for 6 months straight, requesting a consultation with him.
Hell yeah.
And it was just going to be like, I'm going to ask you training. I'm going to ask you like business. And I remember it's like he didn't want to do it. And finally, I think he was just like, fuck it, I'll do it. So 6 months later, he says yes. I take a sick day from teaching. I drive an hour up north. I remember just paying him the money, and we just sat down. He was in a storage closet inside of a like racket and fitness club, and he had a bench, a reverse hyper, a belt squat. I mean, he was a very strict West Side kind of disciple at the time, and we just talked. I remember just training in general, and glute ham raise, and you don't need the fancy stuff, and most kids aren't that strong, and he just kind of like it. My knowledge base was just so little, and I learned that from my earlier years of not being successful, that the worst thing you could do is just not try your best. That if you just do your best, as cliche as that sounds, you already won. Because most people, they don't try their best. Like you were saying something like, oh, I could play Nintendo all day. Kids do that shit.
Right.
They fucking wake up at 12 noon, they have a bowl of cereal, then they play video games all day, and then they show up at 6 o'clock. And I had a kid do that, and I remember he couldn't make it through the workout, and I'm like, maybe it's just too hot, this and that. Then after a couple sessions like that, I go, dude, what the fuck? How are you crushed after the warm-up? You're a varsity athlete. I go, what? Tell me how your day looks. He's like, woke up at 12. I had a bowl of cereal, and then what? Nothing. I go, dude, 6 hours ago you ate, and you're telling me you want to be a champion? What do you do all day? He's like, I just played video games. Oh, you're too fucking lazy to get up. I go, let's go. I fucking drag him outside. His dad's sitting in the truck smoking a cigarette. And I say, Mr. Smith, Mr. So-and-so, Johnny here, this is what he's doing. He's fucking wasting your money. I go, he does this shit again, he's going to pay you back for this month, and I'm canceling his membership. His fucking dad was like screaming at him. Kid starts crying. I go, you don't fucking deserve to cry. You didn't even fucking work hard enough to cry. I said the truth to him, and that's what I feel like we're missing in this world is like, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to go for it. The ultimate sin is not pushing the envelope. So what did I have to lose? If I called Louis Sims and he said, I'm too busy, then I'd call him again and again. And same thing with like writing articles. Back then, there was just like a couple of people on Elite FTS on their Q&A advisory. Most of them were NFL or D1 coaches. So they were all had like fake names. Like it was like Buddy Morris was Coach X. Joe Ken was maybe like 62 or something. Like Tommy Myslinski, who's they call him Milo. Like all these guys that were there, like they were answering questions, and I wanted to share what we were doing from a garage. I was really proud of what we were doing. So the process was simply go for it. And I did it when I started training athletes out of my garage. I remember finding every wrestling club in New Jersey, and there was something like 28 or 30 of them. And I called all of them, and 2 of them called me back. And it was the same thing. I said, I'd love to come and do a warm-up and a workout for your athletes, for the wrestlers. You don't got to pay me. If you don't like it while I'm there, you could kick me out. You don't have to do anything. Dude, I remember this one school I went to, Mike. It was a private school, and I went there. It was in Newark. I don't know if you've ever flown into New Jersey and Newark, but Newark has some hood, and I was like, damn, I'm driving through the hood right now. So I get to the school. I find my way to the wrestling club. I take them through a workout, and then the night before at like 2 or 3 in the morning, I was at Kinko's putting together like I put together like workouts and training tips, and then I printed them out and put them in 3-ring binders, and I remember selling them out of my red Adidas bag for $20.
Wow.
Like I took the kids through the workout. Like I just had I maybe I was so raw and just like fucking go for it, because I took my lessons learned in sports of maybe working hard but not laying it all out on the line. I just took those mistakes, applied it to the business, and I was like, man, the reason why people succeed is because they're just relentless.
Right.
And I learned that some people may not have the best, maybe an athlete might not be the most skilled, but if he's relentless or she's relentless, she will be very successful. And I just approach that with business. And also, I think, Dave and Jim and Joe, like, they saw that I was a guy that was so passionate and genuine that they liked that. And who doesn't like that? Nowadays it's hard to, a lot of people, they'll like, it's weird. Like, people will email me and they don't even say hi. They just want something, or it's like a cut and paste email. It's like they're not even
entitled to it, right?
Right. It's like they're not even trying. And we've got an intern at my one location now, and he trained with us for 3 years. Now he's in college and he's just doing tremendous. Last night I went to go watch our guys wrestle. I said, Chris, you could run these last 3 groups. I'm going to watch our guys wrestle. He crushed it. When I give him little tips on coaching, he implements it like a minute later. Mm-hmm. He sees me, like cleaning the bench. He cleans the bench the next time. That's how I know who's got their shit together. It's like these little details of the people that are not, I'm too good for that. Mm-hmm. And I'm still always trying to learn. Like, on my desk now are training books and business books. And it's like I'm always trying to learn, yet I still remember being at a business conference and this guy comes up to me. He goes, fuck that conjugate shit. Nobody gives a fuck about bands and chains. He goes, every Friday morning, I'm teeing off with my buddies at 10 a.m. Every Thursday, I'm going to this and that, and I'm emptying out that cash register. He's like, you get that money, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I was like, I don't think I like that, man. I understand we got to make money, but I don't think I'm into this training, and I don't think I want to say fuck these conjugate system. Like, I was always intrigued by training, and I still am, and I still love to talk training. But I just didn't like that idea of don't be the greatest coach you could be, mm-hmm. but, pump that cash register. To me, it was about being the greatest, and it will always be about being the greatest. But it's also about, yes, supporting my family. And there's certain things I understand about money and finances, such as, and I know here, you asked me one question, or here I am answering fucking 30 other questions.
Go ahead, brother.
Here's like an example. I've got the 2 locations, and it's like a year and a couple months ago, we trained a large group of football players, and I offered a tremendous discount. And as soon as those football players started baseball, their parents were like, "Oh, too busy, got to quit." Their membership price was less than what it costs for somebody to train with us once a week in season. But you know what? That big discount made them treat me like a fucking, $5 or whatever discounted coach.
Right.
That's how they treated me. Another example is kids will, from the same team, they'll be lifting with their high school, right? Now, some of them will keep lifting with us, and then the others will say, I don't have time, which is confusing because you live in the same town, you're on the same team. Why does, these 3 guys have the time, but you don't? You're all doing the same shit. One kid tells me, he's like, man, I hurt my neck at the high school weight room. I go, what are you doing? He goes, we ran out of squat racks. So the 2 guys that were picking up the barbell and putting it on my back dropped it on my neck. And I'm like, dude, we laugh, right? God. It's like, fuck, you could get fucking killed, dude. And guess what? A week later, that kid's dad told me, and he's on the discounted price. He goes, he's too busy to get there. And that's when I wanted to say, fuck, man, I can't believe that is your investment in your child. Like, he's got an opportunity to break his neck or get world-class coaching. And you're going with the break your neck bullshit. And I don't live that way. I seek out excellence, and that's just been what I've trained. That's how I've been trained. That's what my coaches trained me to do. That's what I've always seen my father do. And that's how I'm tough on my own kids, because I know that if I let them, they will play the video games all day, but I don't let them. I don't, because if these formative years, like if you don't learn dedication and all that stuff in your early years, it's just harder to learn it and teach it in the later years.
It's definitely harder, but I think enrolling yourself into some kind of very intense curriculum, whether it be a strength and conditioning, CrossFit, SEAL Fit, whatever, you can absolutely train those things. I've seen some huge like mental transformations in even like 40, 50-year-old people when they start doing CrossFit, for instance, regularly. You know what I mean?
And you know what it is? They changed their mind. They finally got to a point where they're like, I'm tired of being, out of shape. I'm tired of feeling like this and that hurts. I want to be strong. They change their mind. Everything changes. But those early years are very crucial. And that's kind of like this mission I feel like I'm on is I really want to help this younger generation. But I also, as fired up as I sound, I also learned to have some sort of disconnect. For example, like my second gym is in a very small town. In the beginning, all I thought about was helping the kids in this town, the kids in this town, the kids in this town. I can't even tell you how much stuff I tried to help them with. But they don't want it. The people don't want it in this town. The kids don't want it in this town. I learned it's fine. That's okay. I can't force somebody to want it. When you're ready, as that saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears or the master appears. And, John Welborn reminded me of that. And it just kind of like, you got to let that shit go. You can only control so much. And the thing I could control is my effort. I can't control other people's efforts. But I agree. Is it too late ever? Never. But I want to see this younger generation. Like, I love seeing what the training does for their life, not just their sports. We have a lot of tremendous athletes and what they become as athletes, but what's most important is like who they become as people because of like what you're saying, hard, rigorous training.
Mm-hmm. And that's when all of that training starts to translate into every aspect of their life, right? They have better relationships. They go on to create successful businesses or whatever it may be, rather than just training as an athlete. And when they're done playing, then they have nothing left, right? So training their character is so much more important. I love that philosophy.
Truth.
What advice do you have for a young coach trying to kind of get off the ground as like making a living off of strength and conditioning? How do they get clients, market themselves? How would you go about answering that?
I feel like there's a million ways nowadays to, make a living as a strength coach. For example, you do all of yours online, you said, whereas the majority of mine is through my gyms. And I used to do, my live certification, which maybe down the road I'll relaunch. But I think you should, look at like the mentor model. Tim Ferriss speaks of this a lot. Ryan Holiday speaks about this a lot. You want to find somebody that you kind of see what they're doing and you want to learn from them, but you also want to kind of give your energy to them, meaning I highly recommend mentoring, even if you're not young. Let's say, I got an email the other day from an attorney. He's like, I fucking hate this shit. He's like, I hate this suit and tie shit. I hate this law stuff. I don't like it. He wants to train people. If you want to be a coach, go find somebody that you really admire and shadow them, mentor them. And how do I know who's going to be a good one? For example, one of the coaches at one of the locations, he was working at like a large franchise. He's like, man, it sucked the energy out of me. He's like, there's no intensity, there's no passion. I just need to be at the underground. Can I just come and shadow you? I go, sure, man. You could come and shadow. And it was kind of like a test. For a while, I didn't want to let the people into the gym because I'm afraid they just want to question me when I need to be giving my attention to the kids. But long story short, he'd show up and then he'd start like cleaning the gym. He'd fucking vacuum. He would like help spot kids. Then he started training with one of the coaches before we opened up. Like he was doing all these little things that showed that he wanted to be part of the whole process. When you are mentoring somebody, you're hoping they help you. What you don't want to do is we had another kid who just kind of showed up and he wanted to volunteer. So I said, all right. And then I would say things like, I want you to like go and read all the West Side Barbell articles, print them out. I told him how I print it. It's like, I can't print it out. Like right now, money's tight. Da, da, da. I'm like, all right, save it on your phone, whatever. And then I'd be like, dude, this book, I would get this book on Amazon. You could probably get it used. He's like, money's tight now. Now I got, every advice I gave him was an excuse until one day I said, dude, why are you even here? Anytime I tell you a little piece of advice, you whip back with an excuse. I go, you cannot coach that way. When you're coaching, you should just be like a sponge trying to absorb knowledge, or you can't come and, be a volunteer or an intern or, whatever you want to call it. So I highly recommend the relentless pursuit of excellence. Attend seminars. Get in your car and drive through the night. Sleep in your fucking car and find a way to pay to go to, Sore Neck Summer Strong or wherever it is that you live. And the guys that do that are the most successful. Like there's a kid who's in South Jersey, his name's CJ. And that was how him and I first met. He went to Sore Neck Summer Strong and they drove through the night so they didn't have to get a hotel. And then he slept in his car. And in June in South Carolina is not, the most good weather to sleep in your car. It's like fucking 90 something degrees, super hot. But he did it. He had the balls to do it. And he's extremely successful because of that work ethic. And then you got to decide, do you want to do the business stuff that helps grow the training stuff? So my gym is, a lot of people like find out about it through all of the online writing I do, the videos. So there's all these things. There's like 100 things you're doing to grow the one thing, which is that of being a strength coach. Every day, you've got to read books or read articles and study and learn from the best of the best. And I think it's a very tough, it's a tough job. It's a tough career. But those that succeed are the ones that have passion because they always find a way to make it work, versus finding an excuse.
I love
so it's
that,
a lot.
man.
I mean, it's a lot of stuff. I mean, but there's certainly some people who could run their business not really connected to the internet. Maybe they've got a gym that's got a lot of foot traffic and they're on a main road and that's how they're getting people. Other gyms like myself, we're hidden. So I got to learn the Facebook advertising. I'm always writing articles. And I think I'm going to tell you what's the biggest thing that helps grow the gyms and grow as a strength coach is being fucking awesome, getting tremendous results. And that's something like when somebody's like, Zach, what's your elevator pitch? And I'm like, our results are unmatched and there's no fads, no gimmicks. I'm not selling you. You come to us only when you're ready. And then you go through a trial and we see if you're legitimately serious about this. So I make it tougher to even work with me. But I believe that there's a lot of also respect for what we do because people see all the articles. They see the books, the ebooks, the physical books. They see all the things that were done. And there's like a trust meter that I think, I climb on their scale of trust because they see the history of results. So when a coach doesn't have anything, I go, dude, get 5 or 10 people and do like a 6-week transformation challenge out of your garage. Make them pay you $50 and whoever wins gets all of the money, $500. I go, but You're going to get before and after photos from 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get experience with your program design. You're going to get experience communicating with people who might be starting to bail out midway through. You're going to get experience learning how to work a website because you're going to take photos, you're going to share videos on Instagram, and then you're going to have to, have a website built, off of Fiverr or something. Like, you start learning all these things, and I tell people, I go, there's always a way. There is always a way. And I feel good about the fact that, like, we started where we did, from the garage and the playgrounds and, kind of just buying stuff off of classified ads. It's like, it keeps me grounded. It keeps me from being spoiled. And that's important, because once you get spoiled, once you're like, I'm too good for that, I feel like that's the beginning of the end. You don't want to be there.
Absolutely. I think the common denominator, like the issue that you keep talking about, is that people have this entitlement and they wait for opportunities to come to them, right?
Yes.
Rather than that relentless pursuit of excellence that you keep talking about. You got to try different things. Different situations, different towns are going to take different approaches. So you just have to try different things until something sticks. And that idea of training people for free at first is phenomenal, just to get the experience. And if you do a good job,
I wouldn't even say free, because going back to what I told you about, people don't respect free. They'll fucking bail out. You gotta say, hey, skin in the game. Everybody put $50 in the pot, and everybody has to show up 3 days a week for 6 weeks. I'll put you in a private Facebook group. On the days off, I'll post up some small workouts, some nutrition tips. Everybody has to, be part of this from the beginning to the end. The best physical and, emotional, mental transformation gets all the money. So we got some skin in the game. And there will be quitters. And also, Mike, you run your business online, even with online and off. Like, what's interesting is, certain marketing business methods might work for one of my gyms, but not at the other. Or it might work in one area of New Jersey or one school, but not at the other, because it's different kids there. It's different coaches. The parents are different. The support is different. So I've learned that, it may not work in July, but then it might work in August or September. So you're always experimenting. You're always testing. And also, to piggyback, what I said? I'm like, fuck, I'm mad that, like, I didn't even know Mike. I didn't know about Brute. It bothers me, because I would recommend this. Don't over inundate yourself with 500 resources of information. Maybe listen to 5 podcasts, and then, find the coaches that you are really kind of connected with, and then study them. So you don't maybe study 1,000 different coaches. So, like, on my bookshelf, I've got, a lot of Steven Pressfield stuff for business, all of Tim Ferriss's stuff, training stuff. I get a lot of books that are related to, the guys from Elite FTS, Westside Barbell, Louis Simmons, old school bodybuilding stuff, Marty Gallagher, old school Pavel Tsatsouline stuff. Like, it's, I try not to let my brain go in 100 different directions. And at the same time, I'm also, I saw a video this morning on Instagram from The Rock. He talked about just be yourself. He goes, when I started being an actor, they're like, dude, you got to be like Will Smith and Tom Cruise. They're the best. He's like, well, that doesn't really settle right with me. And also, I'm half black, half Samoan. Those dudes, there is no half black, half Samoan guy who's also a pro wrestler. Right. I want to be me. I don't want to be Will Smith. I don't want to be like that. So I was like, all right. To me, it's like, I tell people, you've got to be yourself. And if you believe in kettlebells and you don't believe in the barbell, then you won't, in your heart, you can't teach the barbell lifts because you don't believe in it. You got to do what you believe in. You got to be you. That's really, and I think that will evolve. Right. You'll learn about yourself as you go through the process of being a coach. And that's what a coach is, always evolving.
Right. And like you're saying, at the end of the day, if you're getting your athletes, clients, customers, whatever, good results, they're gonna tell their friends. So that's
Great
that
results.
is the
Great results.
yeah,
Yeah,
that is the
good is not
absolute
good
most
enough.
important thing.
It's good is not good enough. But so you give your greatest effort, and they might only get good results because maybe they skip workouts, maybe they don't follow your nutrition guidelines, maybe mentally they don't want it. That's also the struggle as a coach. So, but your goal is always greatness. You don't want to be good. You don't want to be in the good because everybody else is good.
Right.
And that's where I really caution coaches: don't settle for good. Don't settle.
What's a belief about strength and conditioning that has recently changed for you?
Change for me or just change across the board?
Yeah, for you.
Um, I would say, what I said earlier is I just never wanted to accept kids until they were of a certain age, but also, I'm training younger kids now because I'm trying to intercept and stop this mindset and this physique that I'm seeing around a lot of kids, which is like they don't look strong and they're not strong. And that's also a dangerous place for a parent. I'm going to send my kid out to play football. And if he plays against a highly prepared kid, we're now at a very serious risk of injury. And to me, that kind of stuff runs through my mind. So I'm more now. I've changed my attitude about training. I've always believed in training young, but my gym was never set up in such a way. If I'm going to train, the youth, I want pretty much like a gymnastics facility. All the tumbling, all that movement work, all the rope climbing, hand walking, and all that stuff. So what I do now is I get them in fourth grade. They do all kinds of med ball throwing. They do sled work. They do our movement warm up, which has like hand walking and jump training. But I just get them moving. So that's been my thing. I've always believed in training at a young age, but for myself and the gym, I'm starting to accept them earlier. Trying to think what else is. Man, what else in my mind has changed? More and more is that you've got to be willing to change. Meaning, when I started training athletes, most of them would show up at the gym in shape, meaning they could sprint, they could jump, they could bang out push-ups and pull-ups. Here and there, you'd get a kid that was just, overweight, very, he was fat, he was out of shape. It was like a here and there thing. But then, about like 5-6 years ago, it started becoming more common. Like, you got those high school seniors, high school varsity players, football players, can't do like 10 push-ups. Or they could deadlift 405 on a trap bar, but they can't do, lunges. Or they run a couple sprints and they look like they're, crying. They're looking up to the sky. And it's like, shit. What's happening is our kids are getting weaker because the expectations of parents are less. So people are like, oh, it's this generation. It's not this generation. This generation of kids, their parents are my age or a couple years older. So what I've learned is that I need to be tougher and raise the bar even more. Because sometimes, as a 40-year-old, Mike, with all the training knowledge, I catch myself saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't deadlift heavy. Somebody could get hurt. Or at the Edison, at my first location, we had tons of high school kids flipping our big tire. It's like 650 pounds. The tread on the edge is brutally hard to grab. We had tons of kids flipping it. One of my coaches says, he goes, yeah, dude, I pulled out the 600. It had all the dust on it. And one of the kids said, one of the older guys was one of the coaches. He goes, dude, we used to flip that thing all the fucking time. So he says, what happened? I go, I think I turned into a pussy. Like, I'm worried. Oh, you might get hurt. You might hurt this. And I learned that shit, man. You can't be scared as a coach. You can't drop your expectations because that sets the standard. So I started saying, man, we all have to get stronger. Everybody has to do more and get better. So in my earlier, less smarter years, I guess, I was a little more crazy, which was good. And then I think as I got more and more educated, here and there I got a little too worried about shit. And that's why it's very important to have a team of coaches. Mm-hmm. I don't want a bunch of Zach Even-Eshes running around. I like my coaches having their own mindset. They're younger than me. They're all they got a little bit of crazy in them, which is what the kids need. So I'd say those are two things that have changed for me because I've seen the changes, so I changed with them. And then sometimes I got a little too smart for my own good. Just like you sometimes hear people talking about all these perfect sets and reps. And Mike, you're like, dude, I remember I coached at Lehigh University last year, the wrestling team, and I'm like, boom, we're going to be power cleaning. First day, more than half of those kids couldn't deadlift with a flat back, or they didn't know how to do a hip hinge. And I was like, dude, it doesn't matter if you're at the Division I level. They weren't trained properly, and now I got to start them the same way I start a 13-year-old. Right. You got to build that base. So I think sometimes you get all this knowledge. Sometimes you could assume the wrong thing. You don't want to get out of touch of reality.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. I
got a couple. Actually, let's stick to one, and then we'll wrap it up. One personal question for you.
Sure.
What can you talk a little bit about the strong life tip of the day, sure, and what your goal with that is, and maybe one of your favorites?
Yeah. So, strong life tip of the day keeps me in check because it's a daily thing. Maybe on the weekend I don't do it, but I pay attention. This is kind of like a business answer. I pay attention to how people communicate with me. If people are communicating with me and asking me a lot about body weight stuff, I know that that's the kind of information I need to put out. I need to answer their calling. But from day one, from the earliest days on the internet, people were coming to me for kind of life advice, which scared me a little bit because it's a big reason why I stepped down from doing a lot of seminars and coaching, because I don't want people looking at my life like it's perfect. Don't look at my business like it's perfect. I'm trying to tell them that nothing is perfect, but the strong life is about you just giving it your all. And I touched upon it earlier, meaning I tell coaches, I go, look, guys, you might see a video and there's 15 or 20 kids in the gym, but there's times where there's one kid in the gym. There's times where there's two kids. There's slow times in the gym. There's times where I struggle with, should I put this shit on the internet or not? So I want to keep it real. To me, that's important. And maybe there's this there's this deeper part of me, because I've kind of been in this, internet game for a while, is that I know that I see people out there that they have this internet persona, but I know that their real life is not like that. Mm-hmm. And to me, I don't want to play that shit, meaning I don't want people thinking, oh, he's got this perfect family life because he's always talking about his kids. It ain't perfect. There's times where I get home later. There's times where I got to work at night, or there's times where maybe I'm focused more on work than I should be. So the strong life keeps me in check, and the strong life is a way for me to inspire others and not bullshit them. And it's really about this kind of emphasis on hard work, believing in yourself, being yourself, and being kind of proud of who you are versus trying to be somebody else. I don't want to be like anyone else. I don't like every single thing about myself. Nobody's perfect. But I work on myself, and I know that the message that people get it sounds crazy, but people are waiting for other people to sometimes save them or help them. And if they're gonna follow me, I'm not gonna bullshit them and give them some pansy ass stuff. I tell people straight up, look. I can't tell you how to get ripped because I'm not fucking ripped. That's it. I'm not ripped. But I'm going to tell you what I know how to do. And you got to be okay with that. So I feel like I'm just sometimes standing up for the good, mm-hmm. I guess. I don't know. And then on the flip side, being very raw. Look at my videos. Sometimes I get a videographer who's high level to do my stuff. But most of the time, it's me holding the camera And I'm hoping that it just inspires people to grab life by the balls because, my past of anytime I was not a success at something, it came down to not that I didn't maybe work hard enough, but oftentimes my belief in myself. So, that saying, I don't know if it was like Musashi that said it, but like, if you live in the past, you're depressed. If you live in the future, you have anxiety. If you live in the present, you have calmness. You're good. So I'm trying to just take what's inside of my heart, inside of my brain, to help people out there because I get messages every day, whether it's on email, Facebook, or all these platforms of people. It's like they people aren't, it's like they want somebody to just kind of like, they're like, man, that message you gave me, it picked me up today. And I could have used that when I was younger. And oftentimes I do need it. So sometimes, I tell people, I go, dude, strong life is a two-way street. You guys fire me up by telling me you need that shit. And I feel obligated to you to keep doing it, even when I don't feel like doing it. I don't know. I just want to show them, like, to be real is to have struggle.
Right. That's what
I've
I was
seen
gonna say
people,
too.
yeah.
If it's nothing else, you're fucking real, and I
I'm
love
just
that.
I'm keeping it real, and maybe there's this part of me that's upset to see people that show something on the internet, but that's not really what the truth is. So, and that could be a million things. Like you're fucking jacked, you're ripped, but you're also on steroids. If you're on steroids, then say you're on steroids so the fucking people know. Or you're talking about making all this money standing in front of that house and car, but you fucking rented that house and car for 2 hours for the photo shoot, then fucking say that. And that's why I tell people straight up, like, look, man, if you want to learn to squat more than 500 pounds, go speak to, the people on Elite FTS. Go speak to Brandon Lilly. I'm probably not going to get you past that 500-pound mark because I never did it myself. But you want to learn to grow a gym, you want to learn to like do some, I can't tell you how to run a CrossFit gym, with adults. I could tell you how to run a small warehouse strength conditioning gym. I'm telling you what I do. And I guess because at the end of the day, I don't want to like be like, damn, I fucking just told those people something that I don't even do or truly believe or stand for. So I'm just gonna keep it real. And I think what's that saying? Like, if you just tell them the truth, like then you don't got to worry about like down the road, like was that the truth? Was that not the
Mm-hmm.
truth? It's always easier to just say, hey man, this shit's fucking hard. The struggle is real. And that's it. So maybe being 40, I'm getting more connected with myself. In my early 30s, I remember, like I wanted to be part of this group. I want to be part of that. I just wanted to feel connection. Now I still love the connection. A lot of my business stuff is moving more towards partnerships, where we're complementing each other. Whereas because I like working as a team, because working alone that's tough also. But I think like you learn, you evolve, you change as you grow. So I'm cool with that. So strong life tip of the day is, giving it your all, giving it your best. Because I think if you do that, you could finish your end of it. You could go to bed every night saying, it was a fucking hard day, but shit, yeah, I gave it my all. I fucking gave it my all. And maybe nobody wanted, maybe no clients signed up for the gym today, but I fucking tried. Or maybe, that deadlift was heavy, but at least I fucking picked up the bar. I could have quit and, sat down on the couch and drank a beer. Or, I went out and ran when my friends fucking went to the bar, drank beers, and shouted at the TV monitor of the other people running. But I ran. I
Mm-hmm.
fucking owned it by running myself. And I always say, like, I don't want to judge people, but there I am judging people. I just telling people, just be real, keeping it simple.
Well, thank you for that, man. Like I said, I've been following you for a long time, and you're a great role model for just being an authentic person and just being yourself. And at the end of the day, like you're saying, if you give it all you've got to in something that you love, then you're gonna be happy and successful no matter what. So thank you for that, man.
Cool.
Let's
It's my pleasure.
let's wrap it up. Where can people follow you on the social medias and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep. If you hashtag on Instagram Strong Life, you should find me. So my Instagram and Twitter is Z Even-Esh, Zevenesh. And if you just like Google Underground Strength, that takes you to the Zach Even-Esh blog, to the Underground Strength Academy, the online cert, and all that stuff. And I'm pretty active on Instagram. I also got the Snapchat stuff. I'm trying to figure it all out. So, if people got questions, best thing to do, I feel like, is Twitter and Instagram. And I'll usually, reply, or oftentimes I'll answer. I'll make you a video answer on YouTube. And also, Strong Life Podcast is on iTunes.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Cool. It was my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on Brute Strength, man. This was awesome, Mike.
Hell yeah, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye, guys.